Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Consciousness Rising. Those of you who are familiar with this channel know that my name is Tania Norris. And today I am just super excited because I'm going to be talking about one of my most favorite topics, something I've been interested in for many years and following. And that is the topic of ufology. And not only that, but this is now ufology in Zimbabwe. So what is ufology? It is really the study or the science of UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And everybody seems to know about Zimbabwe because of the sighting that we had at Ariel School in 1994. And so the whole world knows about that and all researchers know about it. However, we have an enormous amount of activity that goes on in this country. And of recent years, nobody has been documenting that. There was a lady, Cynthia Hind, who passed away some years ago. And since then, I can't even find her records. I've come across some of the information. So I just think it's very exciting because, you know, things, they carry on, they evolve. And I hear about sightings all the time. And I think let's just document that so that at least for our country, we have a record of that. So I'm going to give a shout out right now at the very beginning to people who have had experiences themselves or know of anybody who's had experiences, and ask them please to contact me, because they don't have to go public with it, but just so that I can record it and we have it on record here. So this is very exciting. And you might be asking, so what has all of this got to do with consciousness? Well, I think it's got everything to do with consciousness, because we know that as our awareness and our consciousness expands and goes outward, we are able to access and absorb more information. So if we're going out really on a cosmic level, then can you imagine how much information is in the cosmos that we can connect with, and whether it's through ESP, through remote viewing, through sensitivities and feelings, you know, vibrations are getting so fine that we are able to pick up a lot more information that's around us. So, and this is also a thing now that is evolving with the whole topic of ufology, is that it's not just about nuts and bolts craft coming in from, you know, Zeta Reticula or wherever they're meant to be coming in from. It is also about the interdimensionality of extraterrestrials at a conscious level and a vibrational and a frequency level. So, you know, it's quite an exciting thing. I like to look at it from the perspective of, you know, if you were sitting in the ocean, and imagine this 300 years ago when they didn't have the technology to go into the ocean, their knowledge was pretty limited. They knew about the things that washed up onto the shore, like the jellyfish and the starfish and a whale and an octopus and shellfish. But now that we have the technology to go into the deepest part of the oceans, we know that a whole myriad of life exists there. Things that nobody even knew, from plankton to little microbiotic bacterias to the biggest things. So I think the cosmos is like that. I think it's like an ocean. And if we can just tune in and be aware, then that is a way that we can make contact and communicate with whatever life forms exist out there in that cosmic ocean. So as another thing, of course, is that there's several aspects to the subject or the topic of ufology. If we go back in our modern history, we have, since the Second World War, we had, after the war, when the Germans lost the war, all of those Nazi scientists who were quite advanced, because we kind of know that Germany was working on this type of technology, and all of those scientists were shared across the globe. So some went to America, some to the UK, Russia, and I believe even a couple to China, and taking all of their expertise. And the most notable was Werner von Braun, who took his whole U2, is it UV or V2 rocket team with him to America, and it was him that worked on the Apollo missions that were our moon landings. So it has been going on a long time. So now we have a lot of whistleblowers, we have a lot of documents to substantiate these claims of a secret space program, which runs alongside the public space program, which we all know as NASA. There's that. There's also another thing to mention was Dwight Eisenhower, I think it was 1953 or 54, I'm not sure, had a meeting at Edward Air Force Base, I think it was, in America, where he actually met up with some extraterrestrial races and made some kind of deals with them. So this is another aspect. A lot of people believe that extraterrestrials are either working in cahoots with our governments, giving us technology in exchange for, who knows, maybe planetary resources, or even humans as resources, and also working, maybe not working alongside them, but maybe possibly even influencing them and controlling them. So there's all of the speculation. And again, it depends on what you want to consider as evidence. Some people don't consider written documents as evidence. Some people don't consider whistleblowers as evidence. So these are just things to bring into our awareness so that we can make up our own minds. Our scientists will have us believe that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are just some kind of natural phenomenon, which I think that they are. A lot of it is. It's just things that we don't understand. And certainly moving forward, I think a lot of what we view as extraterrestrials or UFO sightings or phenomena will end up being something natural that we haven't actually discovered yet. You know, it could be light particles coming in from space and catching the light at a certain time that makes things. I'm open to all of that as well. But if you take all of the thousands and thousands and thousands of witnesses, of experiences, and you cut it in half, and then you cut it in half again, and you can cut it in half again, there are still thousands and thousands of people out there who've had experiences and sightings. And so scientists can call it fringe, but let me tell you, governments have invested a lot of money into this topic in the form of technology, of human resources, studies, scientists. So obviously governments don't necessarily perceive this as fringe. I think they realize that there's something more to it. So as you can see, it's a huge topic. I really suggest, if you're interested in all of this, I'm going to put some names of some researchers that I've been following for some years at the bottom of this video clip. And then you make up your own minds. You listen to evidence and make up your own minds of what is real and what is not real. Now, bringing it all back to Zimbabwe. So what the plan is with this series is I have been speaking to people and I do have quite a bit of information. So the best way for me to do it is just to edit it into these recordings. So I will just introduce the people and then you will see them talking or hear them talking. Somebody that we have on the show here today is Janette Brightman. And Janette Brightman has been doing, I would say, research. She's like a scribe. She studies ancient civilizations and ancient history, ancient geography. And she's been investigating in Zimbabwe for many, many years. And we're very, very lucky because she's agreed to join us and be interviewed here on this, our very first series. So that's terrific. So let's bring it all back to Zimbabwe. And I'm going to introduce to you today 3 people who have had sightings. So the very first one that we're going to be listening to, her name is Rudo. And she lives on a farm in Gweru. And she had a sighting with her whole family, 2 children, I think it was her son, 2 children and her husband. And that was our most recent one, which is on the 3rd of April, 2020. So let us take a listen to what Rudo has to say.
Hey guys, my name is Rue. I just wanted to share with you an experience I had a couple of months ago. Um, I'd gone to Kwekwe and I was there for the lockdown. And I think it was on the 3rd of April. Yeah, it was actually on the 3rd of April. It was around 10:30 in the night. And my husband and I went outside and he just happened to look up at the sky and he shook me and he said, look at that funny looking star that's shining so brightly. It's really, really big. So I looked up and I thought, oh my goodness, it didn't look like a normal star. It was very, very big. And I looked at it and I thought, my goodness, that looks like, those spacecraft that I saw in those Janet and John books that we used to read in primary school all those decades ago. So we looked around and I found that there were so many of them. So I just said to him, look how many there are. So we grabbed my son and we said, oh, come and see. So he says, oh my goodness, we were also surprised. Why we were surprised is that they looked like, how do I describe it? Spherical, you know, things. It was like two dinner plates, stacked on top of each other, facing each other. And there was lights coming off the side, like blinking. So we looked around and there was like a lot of them, a lot. Goodness, I couldn't even count how many there were. But the strange thing was that they were in perfect formation. So if I did a 360-degree turn, and it was like we were surrounded. Wherever you looked up in the sky, you could see these stars. I was really convinced they were spacecraft because I can't think that they were stars. I'm not much of a stargazer, so I don't know a lot about which stars are where and which ones come with which and which planets are what. But it was one of those moments where you just know. For me, I just knew. There was no sound coming off them. They were in a perfect circle, but at certain points, in the formation, there was, like northwest, east, and south. There was these objects that were flashing different color lights. It was yellow and red, with all the others were just plain white lights coming out the sides. There was no sound coming off it, and I tried to take a picture, but it was so blurry. So I got cross and I deleted the pictures because I couldn't see anything, which was a bit of a silly thing to do because I could have sent them to somebody to have a look for me and see if they could also see what I was seeing. I wasn't afraid. And yeah, that was just the experience of it. But, having come back to Harare, I tried looking up again. I couldn't see anything. And it was just the strangest thing that I only saw it there in Kwekwe. So yeah, that was my experience with it. And I just wanted to share it with you guys. And yeah, thanks.
So that's quite a remarkable story to listen to, I must say. I think that Rita is very brave. She didn't seem to be afraid at all, so good for her. Something else to mention is that just before Ruda had that sighting, a couple of weeks before, somebody in Bulawayo had a sighting. They're not willing to come forward and they're not willing to talk about it. But they described it as this sort of massive craft on the horizon with like 40 little lights around it. They have since come back to me and said that they think it might be Starlink satellites. So anyway, we haven't cleared up that issue. And if I have any more to report on that, I will. But I just thought that the timing was interesting, because you go Where, and further along the line, and you get to Bulawayo. So that was interesting. Then our next person, her name is Jamie, and Jamie lives on a farm maybe 10 kilometers out of Harare, and she's going to tell us about her experience, which was in 2014.
Hi Tan, it's Jay here. You had asked me to send you a voice note about the object that I'd seen in the sky. You asked for dates, and I'm not 100% sure. I think it was around 2013, 2014. We were sitting inside, and we heard some shouting from outside. The security guard was trying to get our attention. It was about 7 o'clock, 7:30, usually around the time we eat dinner. And we ran outside and ran to the back of the house, where there was a massive round moon-shaped object in the sky. So the best way to describe it was almost like a cloud, because it didn't seem solid. It seemed more it wasn't transparent, but it didn't seem solid. And like I say, very moon-shaped, full moon-shaped. So it was traveling across the sky, lower than the moon, going from what I think must be the east towards the north. And it moved, I guess it would have been quite quickly, like an airplane kind of speed across the sky. So it wasn't so fast that it disappeared. It was slow enough that we could see it actually moving until it got too far for us to see any longer. So that is the experience that we had. Like I said to you, it was so exciting because you always wonder if there's anything out there. And on that day, we got to see something we couldn't explain. I hope that's what you're looking for.
So I just want to put a little bit of disclaimer there. The image that I put up while Jamie was talking about her experience was not the same thing that she saw. It was taken, it was a couple of years later when a similar sighting happened. And this sighting was seen really, I think, all the way from Southern Africa right up to Tanzania, over Mozambique, towards Tanzania. And that particular image was actually taken in Mauritius. So, and there's a whole video of that. Now, something to mention is that when I was looking at that, the sighting was reported, and shortly after that, a scientist, a weather person, or somebody, I don't know where they came from, said that it was actually SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket fuel dropping to Earth. And that was what people were seeing. And I thought to myself, okay, that's cool, but I don't know if rocket fuel can hold a shape, a moon sort of spherical shape like that for miles and miles and miles and miles right across the whole continent and glow like that. You know, that just didn't seem to make sense for me. So it's very interesting whenever someone has a sighting, there's an answer straight away, either from the weather people or from NASA, or now we've got SpaceX interfering with the whole sighting experience. So just something to note there. So next up we have got Janette Brightman, as I explained. She's the one who does all the documenting and the recording of our ancient sites, sacred sites, stone circles in Zimbabwe. And there's a big correlation between our ancient ancestors and UFO sightings, and also ley lines in the earth. So Janette is going to be talking to us about how Zimbabwe fits into the whole ancient history, ancient alien story as well, or mythologies. I don't like to call it a mythology, but let's just call it that for now. So next up we've got Janette.
Hi, Tania, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Well, thanks.
And thank you so much for joining us today to come and talk about this, the UFO sightings, the history of ufology in Zimbabwe, and also our ancient history. Because I was thinking, Janette, you and I have spoken about this many times, but I think it's also important for people to know, you know, the actual history of Zimbabwe and how it's linked to ancient civilizations, because it does play quite a pivotal role in the whole ancient alien mythologies. Do you agree?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And also we have the whole Leylines story. So Leylines, I think people who don't know that, they are magnetic lines that run longitudinally and latitudinally around the Earth, and they form an energy grid on the planet. And we seem to have a lot of activity where ley lines are. So maybe you can just talk about the ley lines and why those are important.
Ley lines are places of electromagnetic energy, and in those lines the energy is very strong there. And then when you find a longitudinal and a latitudinal line crossing, that pocket there where it crosses has, you know, a lot of power in it. We have a very, very powerful ley line running through Zimbabwe, which is the Nilotic Meridian ley line, which is the 31-degree ley line running longitudinally from up through Europe and Russia. And on this line, it's very powerful. I think it used to be the prime meridian line before they moved it to Greenwich, to the UK. And this was where people who, you know, in ancient times sailed the oceans, they used this as a navigational ley line.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I remember you telling me once that this, the Nilotic, it runs right, is it from Cape Town or from South Africa?
Yeah,
and connects all the energy points. Tell us about that.
So it's the longest land line going up, and then when you go right around the Earth, it's the longest water line. And, you know, all the latitudinal lines, you know, that meet it, you know, that you have probably a lot of ancient sites or ruins along, you know, those where they cross.
Mm-hmm.
And these are centers of electromagnetic energy.
And which points are along the Nilotic Meridian? I know Zimbabwe Ruins.
Yeah, Zimbabwe Ruins. Then you go through.
There's the pyramids, I think, are one.
And then you've got a whole lot of other sites in Egypt, you know, on the same line going down. And yeah.
So I remember at one point you told me that this Nilotic Meridian line actually runs through Harare.
Yeah, it does. It also, Harare is right in the middle of it as well. We also have another sort of powerful ley line, the 33-degree ley line as well, going up. And you have the energy from the 33 and the 31 interlocking. And also, you know, the energy expands out further on either side. So, you know, we actually have literally two very powerful ley lines going right up with a lot of energy. The Nilotic Meridian line is also said to have a line of gold, a river of gold going up it. And also it has an underground river which goes the length of sort of Durban right through to the pyramids of Giza. Okay. So when you look at the gold aspect, which is a prime sort of conductor for electricity, and you look at the water aspect, which is also magnetic and is a conductor of the electricity, we have a really, really powerful line going up through Africa.
So you know, it's been said often that along the ley lines there's a lot more UFO activity wherever they are in the world. So
yes, I think.
Carry on.
Sorry. Yeah, yes, I think so, because Zimbabwe Ruins is also known as a vile vortex. Not Zimbabwe Ruins, but Zimbabwe is also known as a vile vortex, which means that we have a lot of electromagnetic energy within the country. Vile vortexes, the main or the most well-known one is the Bermuda Triangle. The magnetic energy causes anomalies, which allows things to disappear, or weird things to happen. Yeah, so we've got this going on in the country, which also intensifies the electromagnetic energy within the country. And I think that the UFO craft, when they come in, they navigate by the ley lines, but I think they also run on electromagnetic energy, and that they feed off the currents, the electromagnetic currents within the country. The stone circles that are throughout the country also are said to be like batteries which hold magnetic energy. So UFO craft are often spotted near stone circles, because I think they navigate by the ley lines as well as getting fuel from them.
I know that Michael Tellinger from South Africa has done a lot of work on the stone circles and all of these ancient ruin sites. Because the cones, we have those two cones at Zimbabwe Ruins that apparently they operate as, or not just them, but any cone technology operates on like sound and frequencies. So it becomes like a receiver or a sender of frequencies. It's quite fascinating work, and he talks a lot about the toroidal fields as well. So I really encourage people to look at Michael Tellinger's work, specifically on these stone circles. He's done a lot of work on that. So the other interesting thing, though, Janette, it's not like, so ley lines, according to scientists, don't exist. It's not possible for them to exist. However, somehow the ancients seem to know about this, because all of these ancient megalithic constructions were all built on ley lines. Like Stonehenge is on one, even religious sites, cathedrals, Mecca is built on one, the Vatican is built on one. So that's a very strange thing. So if you actually draw straight lines, it connects all of these sort of ancient and sacred sites. And the funny thing is that, so scientists, they will acknowledge that part. But the other amazing thing is that in recent years, the American military have built a lot of their, and maybe the British military as well, have built a lot of their bases on ley lines. So they must somehow know that there's something in it.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So anyway, so let us just get back to that. Okay, so that's the ley line aspect of it, and the energy that these ley lines offer up. And as you say, it could even be some kind of tracking system for UFOs if they're flying in. But what also, just tell us a little bit of another reason why Zimbabwe Ruins is sort of on the map in the mythology Anunnaki story.
Yes, well, long ago it was said that people from the Nibiru planet came down to Earth. They were looking for gold because they needed to build a shield around their planet to protect it from the sun's energy. And so they landed in the Persian Gulf, and then went to Saudi Arabia. And they tried to mine the gold out of the ocean, but found it was too difficult, and it was just taking too long. So they started looking around the planet to find another source of gold which could be easily mined. And they found this in southern Africa. And so they, there was one brother who came down, who was Enki. He was the oldest brother. And so he went down to southern Africa, Zimbabwe in particular, to start mining gold there. And he took with him 600 of his men, and they started the mining there. And then his other brother, his younger brother, came down, who was named Elil, and he took over the operations in the northern hemisphere, while Enki was given, operations in the southern hemisphere. Then the miners started to rebel because it was quite hard work, and they felt, that it was too much for them. So this is when Enki had a conference with his father and his brother, and they decided to create slave labor, So they genetically modified the cells from Homo erectus with their cells, and to create a human being, which became the Homo sapiens, after further modifying the genes. And then they continued, to create more humans for the mining of the gold. And then Enlil also wanted laborers for mining, for farming the crops up in the northern hemisphere. So it was just an ongoing basis.
So as this is research done by Zachariah Sitchin, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and that was his translation of the Hermetic texts, or what are they called? The Sumerian texts.
Yes, that's right.
And all right, so there is a lot of work being done on how can I say, ancient alien mythologies, and I hate to call it a mythologies because I think we're never going to know how much truth is in that, but there seems to be quite a bit of evidence on the planet that suggests that, and even things that are being carbon dated. Scientists are not really being able to come up with accurate dates. So.
Yeah. I was just reading recently that the site of Zimbabwe Ruins, that the ruins, or it may have been rebuilt several times, and they think that the ruins actually date back to when the Sphinx was made, and it's just been rebuilt over a number of times. Like sites in Europe, where they've rebuilt, cathedrals and things, if they've been destroyed or.
Well, it's like that. They say Jerusalem is just layers and layers and layers and layers of sort of civilizations.
Yeah.
I know. I find it all really, really fascinating. So, and then really, so we get to this whole idea that the planet Earth is really just one big petri dish, one big experiment, because the Anunnaki weren't the only ones who were coming in and experimenting. I think throughout our ages, there's been many, many stories of beings from other worlds, from other planets coming and playing with our genetics and bioengineering us. So of course, there's that talk that a lot of this UFO activity that's going on is them basically just monitoring us.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I mean, that's all just possibility.
Yeah, I think there's been a number of civilizations, even before Lemuria, where, and sophisticated civilizations. But we just don't know the history. It's been buried, for the time being.
That's right. So anyway, this is just something that ties into the whole UFO ufology story, which is a vast story. Anyway, Janette, is there anything else you'd like to add to that rendition about why you think Zimbabwe might be a hotspot?
I think it's a hotspot because of the electromagnetic energy that we have here, which is a lot more than other places in the world. I also think gold comes into it too, in that they're looking for gold for their planets. And I also, gold, the frequency of gold is incredibly high. It's the on top of the hierarchy of the metals and minerals. And it gives out this frequency where it can open doorways or portals into the area. And so one wonders whether with the gold frequency and the electromagnetic frequency, whether, you know, we have got portals or doorways open which allow, you know, the spacecraft to enter easily in this part of the world.
That's right. There are those sort of, what do they call them, vortices or vortexes, where maybe that's where the ley lines actually cross, and like that conjunction creates like a vortex. If you look at the ley lines in Zimbabwe Ruins, there's quite a few lines cutting through it, you know, that come to a conjunction. I don't know what there must be a term for that, and I'm not sure what that is.
They also talk about wormholes in these stone circles. So Zimbabwe Ruins may also be a wormhole, which is a tunnel which connects two places, you know, to get, you know,
right,
you know, for to travel down and through to you know, their destination.
Well, Janette, it's fascinating stuff, and I think that you and I are going to have more conversations about this, because it's only one aspect, and it's a science in and of itself. I think the whole energetics, the ley lines, the ancient history. So so we'll do that for the purpose of this show, though. Let's just leave it at that. And really, I'd so appreciate you coming on and spending your time to chat to us.
Thanks very much, Tania.
All righty. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So that is our show for today. And thank you very much for watching. Just to tell you of things that are coming up, I came across somebody called Val, who was actually involved with the community with Cynthia Hind. And she gave me an enormous amount of information. And I'll be sharing a lot of that with you in our next series. But also Val is very interesting. She's got fascinating stories. She actually has had, how can I say, interactions, which they call, what do they call it? Close encounters of the fifth kind, where you actually have interactions with these extraterrestrial beings. So that is something to look forward to, and that's coming up in our next episode, which will be maybe in 3 weeks or so. So again, please like this, share this, even if it's not really your topic. There are a lot of people out there that are interested, and they might find it very interesting. And also it's a way of us getting the information into me and sort of channeling it through, so that I can start my keeping my document record. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and hope you enjoyed that. And I'll see you next week. Bye.